Hello everyone. In this video, I want to talk about our project and give you a short introduction to questionnaire design, which you use in the next week, I think. At this point of our project, I think you get in touch with the other team members, and now is the moment to think of a topic to research. Topic to research sounds a little bit huge thing, only for a few weeks we work within till Christmas, but think it a little bit smaller. Um, think of a topic to research. Some would say a research project like this begins maybe with an emotion. What are you curious about? What are the other team members are curious about? What are you angry about? Thinking about product, thinking about services, thinking about attitudes. Maybe you are excited about learning or get knowledge about attitudes from other people, not only students. The closer the topic is to an essential concern of yours, the more interesting and vital your questionnaire project will be, even if it's so small as our questionnaire project. Our questionnaire project will contain only 20 items at least, and so it will be small, uh, very small project, but we want to learn how to create a questionnaire, how to conduct it, and how to interpret the results. So think of a topic to research. It could be an attitude, shopping behavior, consumer behavior, decision making processes, or anything else. Maybe a good start point would be a kind of product or kind of services. For example, you are very interested in clothes or food or anything else, that would be a good starting point to think about a topic to research. What could be interesting for you? Maybe the comparison between two samples from different countries like Ghana and Germany. Maybe that would be interesting, and so you can give this a starting point. But it also could be interesting to measure the differences between male and female customers, younger and older customers, or anything like that. You're completely free in finding and defining the topic to research. I think nearly every issue which is connected to market psychology and consumer behavior would be suitable for us. If you agree in your group of a topic to research, the next step is to formulate a rough hypothesis. Hypothesis is an assumption about the behavior of the consumers, of the respondents you want to ask. Formulate a rough hypothesis that sharpens your interest in the topic. For example, male customers are more interesting in cheaper clothes than female customers. That's what the hypothesis comes to my mind at this very moment. So it's not very appropriate formulated, but it could be anything like this. What facts do you hope your questionnaire will bring out? And you can formulate one hypothesis, two or three, the more the better, because it's easier to analyze. But if you are only find two, it's enough. In the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about questionnaire design. Questionnaire design is special method. We could talk about a few weeks in our seminar, but I would use the facts on a few slides, so we can do it here in a very compact manner. At first, I want to show you an example for questionnaire. It's a very very simple one, the job satisfaction survey. Maybe you heard about it in other classes. It's about job satisfaction and relationship to colleagues and relationship to leadership persons and so on. And I show you on this slide 6 items, and I think you saw a questionnaire like this. And the idea of questionnaires is to have simple sentences, as simple as possible, like the first one here on the slide: I feel I am being paid a fair amount for the work I do. It should be a very simple sentence. And you see on the other side of the slide the answering scale. It goes from 1 to 6. From disagree very much, disagree moderately, disagree slightly, to agree slightly, agree moderately, and agree very much. This we call the Likert scale, a 6-point Likert scale in this case. You can use 4-point Likert scales also, or 5-point Likert scales also, and if you like, you can use 10-point Likert scales. And the idea that you have the same in mind, the same distances between the different answering options. I say you have the equal distance in mind because it's just impossible to have the equal distance between disagree very much and disagree moderately as agree slightly and agree moderately. This means the aspect you have to choose the equal distance between the answering option is a very vulnerable criteria. We tried it in market psychology, but I think it's not easy to reach this objective in our questionnaire and our answering options. Okay, what does that mean for you? Please formulate all items, or nearly all items, in this sentence, in this kind of sentence, basic sentences with a dot at the end and not with a question mark. I recommend you to use Likert scales as answering options. It's up to you whether you choose 4 or 5 or 6 point Likert scale. And I would add that the more answering options you choose, the better goes the analysis. But the disadvantage of a huge amount of a huge number of answering options is if you have 8 or 9 or 10 answering options, it's very difficult and costs the respondents a lot of effort to answer them, because it's very difficult to say that the 5th answering option or the 4th, maybe it sounds very similar to the respondents. Okay, my conclusion is, if you have respondents who are not very familiar with fulfilling questionnaires every day, please use a smaller number of answering options, for example 4. And if you have a sample, if you have respondents who are very familiar with fulfilling questionnaires, then you can choose the higher number of answering options, for example 6. I think customers who are not very familiar with fulfilling questionnaires should only be confronted with a 4-point Likert scale. But you're completely free. It's up to you which number of answering options you choose. Okay, this was an example from organizational psychology. At the end of this small presentation, we show you 2 examples from the market psychology questionnaires. Okay, the idea is you have some kind of general warm-up in the beginning of the questionnaire. and then you go specific, in-depth the topic. That means, yes, at the beginning of the questionnaire, there should be presented some questions were very easy to answer and were about the topic in general, and the specific aspects should follow on maybe on the next page or after 5 or 6 items. And at the end, you have some kind of general wind down to show the respondent, okay, that's some kind of a story he used to. You have these stages in questionnaire design. We started with formulating the research questions clearly. I said a few slides ago. And then we have to identify the population of the sample. In our case, in our project, I think it's very easy to orient yourself on students' samples, but it's not necessary. You can use and define every sample you want. Please have in mind that you have some connections to these samples because you have to motivate the respondents to fulfill your questionnaire. And then in the third step, we want to design the questionnaire, which means we think about the question wording of each item, the questionnaire formatting, the mode of administration, and the data analysis. In our case, I recommend you, while designing the questionnaire, only think about the question wording and the kind of questions, the answering options, and so on. And the other aspects you can, it's not necessary to decide it right now. We can talk about it after the question wording process. Then you have to pre-test the questionnaire. This is quite easy. Just take 2 or 3 people who are part of the sample and talk to them about the questionnaire. They should fulfill the questionnaire and give you information about the usability of the questionnaire, about technical problems, maybe about the content and the wording. And so you have to the chance to reformulate items who made problems to the respondents or to the pre-test group. Then you have to administer the questionnaire after we revise in the light of step 4, which in our case means we went online with the questionnaire. We use an online platform. I recommend you Unipark, and in the next week you get your individual accounts. The goals of questionnaire design is first to obtain facts about a person. Fact can be an attitude, behavior, information about previous or protected behavior or behavior in the future. The second goal is to obtain information about the attitudes and beliefs, and the third step is to find out what a person has done, behaviors, and to get information about the plan who has a person about the future, maybe some kind of purchase decision the person wants to do in the next time. Let's have a few words about the questionnaire wording because it's very important. All items should be exact. The words should be as simple as possible. Avoid in your questionnaire biased or emotive words. And here I have an example from Schumann and Presser, which was published in the 1980s. It's about subtle changes of wording which may influence responses. And the example is, should the government allow public speeches by a communist? That was the example. And this item produced 25% fewer pro-free speeches responses when allow was replaced by forbid. And the conclusion is try to avoid words like allow or forbid, because it has a great influence on the answering behavior of the respondent. To follow with hints for questionnaire design, make all alternatives clear. This is important if you don't use a Likert scale. For example, if you want to categorize the answer of the respondents, so you have to check whether all alternatives, all answering options are completely clear to the respondents. Avoid the format. Some people say X, do you agree or disagree? Because that's a kind of influence also. Avoid unwarranted assumptions. For example, what is your occupation? Assumes person has a job. It's also possible that the person has not a job at this very moment, and so this respondent can answer this question, and maybe he or she is frustrated at this point of the question and think, hey, why is it not possible to answer this in my special situation? Then avoid double-barreled questions, e.g., should immigrants be repatriated and their possessions confiscated? These item contains two questions, and some kind of signal word is and if you have an and in your item, please check whether it's more suitable to separate the two parts of the item, and it's quite easy to solve this problem. Just make two questions of it. Avoid double negatives, e.g., are you against a ban on smoking? This should be reformulated. Consider the relative merits of open-ended and closed-ended questions. In our case, for our project, I recommend you to use mostly closed-ended questions because it's easier to analyze and interpret, but you're completely free if you like to use open-ended questions. Please have in mind it costs more effort to analyze them. Open-ended questions allow unconstrained responses, e.g., how do you travel to the university? This question may produce richly detailed responses, but as I say, this question is hard and tedious to score. If you use closed-ended questions, that means that you that require choice from a limited range of alternatives. You travel to university, and now you have the answering options by bus, by car, or unicycle, whatever. This is very easy to code, but prone to bias because you have to reduce all possible answerings into these categories. Closed-ended question must have a balanced response scale. Closed-ended question must have mutually exclusive categories. This is quite important. For example, if you want to use categories that are connected with each other, for example, groups of age, groups of income, or anything else. And closed-ended question must have facilities for handling, like don't know and other responses, or no answer option is possible, is suitable for me, or anything else. If it's possible that someone talk, I don't know, or no answering options is suitable for me, this person should have the option to use this some kind of exit answering option. The last step is to talk about some types of marketing surveys. We have a small variety of used types, like market description surveys is one. That means to determine the size and relative market share of the market. Such studies provide key information about market growth, competitive positioning, and tracking share of market. in our case, it is not necessary to define the type of marketing service so sharp at this on this slide, but I want to add it because it's this aspect belongs to questionnaire design. We have a market profiling segmentation service also to identify who the customers are, who they are not, and why they are or are not your customers. This is often a descriptive market segmentation and market share analysis. This could be interesting maybe for your project if you want to compare consumer behavior from different target groups, for example, from Germany and Ghana. I want to follow with types of marketing surveys. We have customer intention, which means we want to analyze the purchase intention. That means directed and understanding the current customer, what motivates the customer to move from interest in the product to actual purchase. This is the key to understanding customer conversion, commitment, and loyalty. This could be interesting for you because you are aware of a lot of products and services, and so you can analyze the customer intention with the current customers. Then you can analyze the customer attitudes and expectation, which includes the question: does the product meet customer expectations? What attitudes have customers formed about the product and or the company? Used to direct advertising. I had to begin the sentence in another way. This type of marketing survey can be used to direct advertising and improve customer conversion, commitment, and loyalty. The last type of marketing survey I want to mention is a new product concept analysis survey. Which means this is a concept test studies are appropriate in the initial screening of new product concept, likes and dislikes about the concept, and evaluation of acceptability and likelihood of purchase, especially useful measures in front of a decision of some kind of market entry in this field. So at the end, I wanted to show you two examples from master thesis candidates I support. The first one is about shopping clothes. This is the first part of the questionnaire without the text entry, without the welcome message to the respondent. Yeah, the first item: how often do you buy clothes? And here you see the answering options. Where do you usually buy clothes? Up to 2 choices, and so on. And you have to answer your favorite payment method, and so on. I choose this example because here you see answering options with a not Likert scale because of the topic of the items. If I wanted to ask about payment methods or the stores the customers usually visit, it's just impossible to use Likert scale answering options, and therefore I want to show these aspects. If you want to get information about customer behavior, in the past, mostly it's not suitable to use Likert scale. Likert scale answering options are more suitable for measuring attitudes. The next example is about another master thesis. It's about fruits, especially dried fruits, and this is a questionnaire will be conducted in the next weeks in Kenya, and it's about dry fruit, and here you see some kind of a matrix question, which means you have a 4-point Likert scale from agree to disagree. It's not very important on which side of the answering option scale is agree or disagree, but usually we have disagree on the left side, but it's not necessary. But you have it's important not to change the direction of the answering option through your questionnaire. So here you see a Likert scale answering option and items like this. I attach great importance to healthy diet. The ingredients of food are not important to me. And here you see the typical kind of attitude measurement with a 4-point Likert scale and some kind of an exit option. Don't know, no opinion. In this case, I wouldn't recommend the don't know or no opinion option because if you ask about attitude, you can force the respondents to answer the items. If someone is not able to answer an item or not interested in, you would skip it and it's also okay. The second item you see on this slide, it's about the precise question about brands. The respondents know it's about brands of the right foods, and they have to choose whether they tasted product from this brand or especially like them. So each respondent can answer it about Sweetuna, Seeberger, whatever. Did I try dried fruit from this brand or like it? If I never tried this, if I never tasted this brand, I skip this question and no answer is needed. Okay, then I want to say about questionnaire design. It's also a very small input to bring you ideas of your own questionnaire. It's very small because of our small project. And questionnaire design, and my experience is a process at every time of your any time of your student time you begin it, and if you like it, it's step by step you learn with each questionnaire more about it. And so I hope we have a good starting point of your question design career.